What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You are on the sidelines with the Sideline Guys. And today, people, today of all days, I am joined by my distinguished co host, a man living in parts unknown, a man somewhere out there in the stratosphere that has found his way to an internet connection just for this show. My guy, my brother in arms, dedication at its finest. Sean Negron, how's it going, brother?
It's going well. It's going well. I'm starting to think I'm more of like a, international sort of host here. I've hosted in Mexico for you. I've hosted here in the United States. I'm in now different states. I do it all for you, and I get no reciprocation, no love. It's all good though. It is what it is.
Yeah, this guy wants me to roll out the red carpet for him. It's amazing. But hey,
I don't
as
understand why you
long
don't.
it's the dedication. It's always appreciated. But when it's 4 hours after what we were supposed to be dedicated, it changes your perspective. But it's amazing to have you here nonetheless, brother. I can't wait to be talking about all things UFC 300. We were so excited about UFC 300. We decided we're going to give you guys 2 episodes this week. Who would have thought? Not me. With the way we've been putting out episodes lately, 2 episodes in 1 week. Shit. I better be getting paid real soon. But all jokes aside, we do this out of the love of our hearts, and man, couldn't have gave us a better week, right? To be excited, to look forward to the biggest card probably ever, right? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, this is the hype is for certainly real. I guess it's more of like what we'll see after the UFC 300 on how much it lived up to the hype. Was it disappointing? Does it compare to the ranks of the top five cards out there? So it's supposed to be good. I wonder, what place it'll take.
Yeah, I was about to say I feel like I hyped it up. I brought out the runway there, and then you never even took off. Like, how are you feel? Are you
You
lukewarm on
can
this
bring the
card
red
right now?
carpet for me. I'm not bringing the runway to you. You got that? Like that's how we work here. All right.
Okay.
This is. I'm excited for it. I just there's one I'm going to be working during, so it's not what I want.
Hmm.
But I am excited for it because obviously every fight on this card is could be potential hellscape fight night main events, and also there's 14 current and former champions on this card. This is as real and as big as it's going to get. I'm very, very excited for what they have coming.
Hell yeah, man. We're couldn't be more pumped. And it's only right that we break it up in 2 segments so we could each, give these fights the time and dedication that they deserve. There's gonna be no sad waffling about and moving on before we necessarily need to, because all of these fights are compelling and could lead to a potential 5, 10 minute, 20-minute conversation just because of, once again, the level of skill. So there's a lot to look forward to here. Can't wait to get started. But before we do, make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. And while you're at it, why don't you follow me on TikTok as well as the site formerly known as Twitter, VX.com at Negron MMA, where I will be posting some really good clips of the show, right? Getting you excited, getting you to see not only some of our perspectives on these fights, but also the ways in which the film study lines up with it, right? I had a real fun time making that Brendan Allen one and sort of learning the proper way to do this now, right? So I'm kind of getting the clip first, making my game script, so to speak, and then cutting up the footage based on what I got going on. So I got my little formula. It's exciting. Make sure that you're following so you could watch all of those little segments from this very show. But with all that being said, Sean, how can the people find you?
If you want to find me, you can find me at Sean Egron 26 on Twitter, X, whatever, or at BS Reports or my website, bsreports.org. That is my website for anyone sports related in writing, podcasting, whatever the case may be. If you ever want to get started in that industry, just hit me up and I'll help you out.
You heard the man, S on his chest. He's ready to save him. And just like that, baby, the UFC 300 prelims are among us. God damn it! So I just want to make this very clear. This is a record as far as the amount of dynasty fighters competing on one card. So we're gonna try our best to reorient you guys so that you're aware of who's on whose team, what's at stake for our dynasty purposes, as well as, of course, what's at stake in these matchups. So in our first bantamweight matchup of the night, we have Deividson, Dos de Guerra, Figueredo, a minus 300 favorite, going up against Cody Garbrandt, who comes back at plus 255. Sean is the only one with dynasty implications here, as he is a owner of that good old Figgy Small stock. So with that, Sean, why don't I force you to lead the dance on this bantamweight opening bout of the night?
Ah, man, I love how you throw it to me right from the start. I thought we were gonna actually change this for UFC 300, but it's all good. This one, to give it a simple prediction right off the bat, I'm going with Davison here. I think, as a former champion, and the fact that he wanted to come up to this weight, this is something he's been looking forward to. He looked great in his first fight at this weight class. And, the thing about Cody, I think we've all seen Cody, from being a champion or on the rise to being a champion. We've seen him on Tough, when he was talking shit to Conor McGregor when it first started, and the whole Uriah Faber thing. We've seen his whole career basically, and we've seen the ups, and we have most certainly seen the downs. And as much as I love Cody and what he did to your boy Cruz, I think that his time is definitely not as good as it once was. And I think, to be honest with you, all Davison really has to do to secure a win here, I think, is to just recover from the first 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of just crazy onslaught that Cody's going to throw his way. The very beginning is always pretty high pressure from Cody. He's kind of like, he's always kind of circling the middle of the cage, forcing. He's going to force Davidson to the outside of the cage, push pressure, push pressure. If Davidson could force pressure and himself and kind of keep Garbrandt on the back toes, it could be even quicker for him. But I think Cody can kind of gas out by the first round. And I think we all know who Garbrandt's chin has done for him as of late. He doesn't have the greatest of chins, and I think, I don't think this one will necessarily end via knockout or anything, but I think this is one where Davison outgrapples him. He's just going to constantly push pressure in that rounds 2 and 3, and I think this is one where Davison gets the victory.
So before I go, I'm just curious. How do you think this fight is going to be as far as like excitement levels, right? The quality of the fisticuffs experience.
Very exciting. I think this is going to be a very fun fight to start off. Like, that's what I was saying with Cody. I think Cody's going to come in with a lot of crazy pressure at first and a lot swinging. It's UFC 300. And before even UFC 300, he was always, crazy like that. Remember the Pedro Munoz fight? I think we will never forget, where that dude was swinging for a knockout. He was looking to knock that dude's head off, and then of course, he didn't, and then ran out of gas, got clipped, and then eventually lost. But I think I'm not saying that that's what this sort of situation is, but I think this is one where it's just going to be super high level. First fight of the night, Cody's swinging, Davidson's, going back at him. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think at the end, rounds 2 and 3, it'll be Figueredo's to win.
Wow, I love your optimism. I love your enthusiasm. I couldn't disagree with you more, man. I'm on the opposite side of the fence entirely as you on this fight card. Well, this fight on the card, specifically because of Cody, the new age Cody Garbrandt. I think I agree with generally what you said as far as him pushing the pressure, but this stage of his career, this is not that guy no more. This is quite literally the opposite. Uh, when watching back not only the Trevin Jones but also the Brian the Skullet Kelleher fight, I just was immediately put off by the way Cody Garbrandt has been approaching fights lately. It's a lot of counter striking. It's a lot of waiting for you to force me to do anything. Right? If you don't force me to do anything, I don't have any reason to do anything. Like I'm just gonna continue circling the cage. And unfortunately, I think that is going to be a problem in this fight because I agree with you. I think Cody's chin has seen better days. Of course, I think his chin is there to be served on a platter to Deividson. But the issue with that is I think Deividson is also a counter striker, right? So both of these guys are kind of going to be forced to look in the mirror and wait for the other to do something to bite on. And I just feel like Davidson, yes, he is deceptively long for the weight class, even though he's coming up from 125, and he fights very long too. So I think that coupled with the new age Garbrandt is gonna make Cody feel just so uncomfortable on the outside, where it's gonna be like that Trevin Jones fight where he's sort of dancing around and hoping that Davidson will pressure him so that he can counter. I think honestly, if Cody Garbrandt could stick to that game plan and counter wrestle and really force Davison to be the one to actually go forward first, I think this is his fight to lose. And I know that sounds crazy, but he's much faster. And I think as far as the level of athleticism, I think both of these guys are they're good adversaries for each other in that department. I think Davison is such a freak athlete at 125, but at 135, I think things are equalized a little bit. So um, I'm really interested to see who pressures here. Like I'm convinced that none of these guys want to do that. Like just watching both of their fights, um, I think this can be a real ugly fight in the beginning where both of them are just kind of waiting for the other to do something, and then eventually we find ourselves in the scramble that finishes the first round and we're like, holy shit, this is this is what we showed up for, god damn it. I think ultimately at its peak, I agree, this fight can definitely bring the violence and be very exciting. But I just think the way these two guys match up, I think Davison is going to really scare the shit out of Cody Garbrandt and make it very uncomfortable for any sort of direct engagements, at least early on. And I think their grappling advantages sort of cancel each other out. I feel like although Cody Garbrandt has a much better reactive shot, which is where I think he could get Davison down in this one, I think Davidson's actually looked pretty good offensively, mixing in takedowns from different positions, not just single and double leg attacks, but also from the clinch as well. So a little bit more of a threat there from Davison, despite the more likely path to a takedown for Cody Garbrandt, with sort of playing the matador to that pressure. This is gonna be a fun one. I think the odds don't really indicate where this fight is because I just have a feeling it's gonna be really close and really slow. So I'm still gonna pick Davison. I think ultimately he should be the guy with the kind of power that changes the complexion of the fight. But if Cody gets going, man, especially with the speed difference, I think he could hurt Davison too, man. So this was a tough one for me, and especially when I saw the lines, I was like, hey, I might want to take a flyer on Cody Garbrandt. God damn it! But for the purposes of the show, I'm picking Figgy Smalls as well. Well, all right. He's got nothing to say to that bullshit. Next up,
Oh, I disagree, but that's why. But I already gave my piece, and I look. You know what I'm gonna do?
I'd love a
I'm.
rebuttal. How about a rebuttal, Sean?
I don't want to really rebuttal you because
Okay, I'm sorry.
I I like a lot of points that you said, but and the counter striking I should have said, which you definitely pointed out, made me feel like an idiot there, but it's all good. But it's I do think at the end of it all, you know, Cody's career is sort of at the later end. If I don't want to say the end, but we're definitely getting towards the end here. Well, I think Davison is trying to find this rejuvenation in a new division and hopefully, bring himself a crown in this weight class as well. And I
That's a
think
great
that's
shout.
why,
Real quick, I think Davison can fight another 8 years at this weight class.
for
I
sure.
think
Oh, for
I think
sure.
Cody Garbrandt probably has like two max.
Yeah, I honestly would have said 2 fights max, to be honest. I remember I even said this on our show where, when we were talking about Cody's next fight, I didn't even know what they could have done for him, and I said they'd give him Dom Cruz again. Give him that would be an incredible, co-main event somewhere on a fight night or something to have them go back at it for 5 rounds to relive that history. And I hope they end up doing that because, I haven't seen Dominic Cruz in a fight, and I know he's taking time off. I know he's not going to get Garbrandt or anything like that, anytime soon, but that's why I wanted to see that. But, I did like Cody in his last fight, and even the fight before that. I just think this is one of those where it's more of, names coming together to fight each other, and I think the trajectory of both of their careers are in different areas. I think Cody's, is no longer falling. I think his is more of just kind of staying stagnant, getting little minor increases here, and fighting someone like Davidson's a nice thing to put on the resume. I just think Davidson is just much better at this point, in 2024.
I love it, man. Next up, at lightweight, the Lord's weight, we have Bobby King Green minus 170 versus Jim fucking Miller, A10 baby in the building, plus 164 is the comeback on Jim fucking Miller. All right, man. Once again, Sean is in the driver's seat. 2 fights in a row where he is the only man who has stock in Dynasty in either of these fighters. Of course, his fighter in the race is Bobby Green. So I'm excited to
Oh,
hear
damn.
when it's his turn, how he feels about this fight and
No, you
about
don't want
this
me to go first
matchup.
now?
No, no, no,
All
no,
right.
no. I'm going for we alternate on this show.
Okay.
It's only fair. I'm very excited about this fight. I think styles make fights, and this is one of those fights that you can't fuck up, right? Like no matter what, we've seen Jim Miller against Southpaws. This is gonna be a fucking banger. Like no matter how you put it, no matter how you slice it, this fight is gonna be awesome. There's nothing about this fight that doesn't excite me, that doesn't get the jimmies going. I'm fucking pumped for this fight. I think ultimately the dynamic on the feet is really going to be if Bobby Green is going to be able to touch Jim Miller's chin early, and whether or not Jim Miller's leg kicks can play a factor, right? Like, I feel like the longer this fight goes, the more it shifts in Jim Miller's favor just because of the attritional damage, the way that he is going to break down Bobby Green on the feet. Very similar. Remember, this is the same Jim Miller a couple years ago that went tooth and nail with Dustin Poirier and almost finished him with leg kicks. And once again, same stance matchup here. I think this is going to be a very like although competitive and a lot of back and forth exchanges, I think it's going to be very one note from both of these guys. I think Bobby Green's going to be trying to knock him out, and I think Jim Miller is going to be trying to take pieces off of him so that by the time we get to the third round, he should be able to dismantle him. I'm really excited for this fight. I think Jim Miller's grappling advantage is a little understated here. I think he can definitely mix things up and put Bobby Green into some control positions. Do I necessarily expect any of these guys to land a submission in this fight? Definitely not. I think this is either going to be a knockout or a decision victory for whoever gets the win here. Um, my heart says Jim Miller. I think I'm very clear about that. But I'm gonna side with my head on this one. I'm gonna go with Bobby Green. I just think he ultimately is a little bit more elusive at this stage of their careers and isn't on the same sort of late career track that I think Jim Miller's has been on lately. We talked about this last week with Alex Morono, right? Being in a separate division within the division. Bobby Green is top 15, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And this is Jim Miller's crack at that once again. He hasn't fought to that level in a couple of fights now. So once again, we're kind of getting a good gauge of where he's at. But I think Bobby Green is a little bit more towards the peak of his powers at this stage than Jim Miller, unfortunately. So that's where I'm leaning. I think Bobby Green by decision, but ultimately, I think this is going to be a real fun back and forth scrap. How you feeling, Sean?
To be honest with you, I'm going to be different. I'm going with Jim Miller here, and I probably would have picked Bobby Green. There's a couple of reasons. All right, so Bobby Green, his what do you call it? His fight IQ, his slick boxing, is able to keep distance. He's that I felt like can be more than enough. He's got strong defensive wrestling. It's not that doesn't play into too much of what Jim Miller is going to try to do. I think, like you said, it's going to be a lot of leg kicks, and I think if Bobby can clip Jim early, then I think this is one of those where Bobby can sort of take this fight into wherever realm he needs to. But the thing about Bobby Green that bothers me is one, like he leaves his fights a little too close sometimes. And second, that last fight against Jalen Turner bothers me still because that was in like December. And I don't remember the ref that night, but that ref made sure Bobby was in like 18 different shadow realms before taking him out of that fight. And this is sort of a quick turnaround. They made that fight like 2 months ago already. We already knew this was the fight to make. And the fact that they threw him in, and it's been less than 4 months of since that crazy, pretty nasty knockout. That sort of bothers me here because like a lot of people take it either way, where the knockout they'll come back from it, or no, that knockout messed them up. They're not the same. And I obviously everyone can refer to Volkanovski's last fight to get knocked out by Islam, and then he takes that 4 month turnaround and he gets knocked out by Topuria. But obviously every fight is different. But that sort of bothers me here. I think Jim Miller doesn't have the most powerful hands in the world, so I don't expect something crazy like that. But I do think that Bobby Green's vulnerable, and I think once if Jim's gonna take down the legs and try to piece him up little by little, like you were saying, I think that will make Bobby more cautious and more on the back foot, and I think Jim Miller will exploit that. I don't think anyone's getting knocked out in this fight, but I do think it's going to be a nice veteran v veteran presence here between the two of them. We've seen them for like I don't even know 10 years. It feels like. So this is something where it's an
Longer.
exciting fight. Yeah, for an exciting fight for all the old heads that have been watching longer than I have. But I think Jim, his trajectory over his last, he's got 4 wins, 5 wins in a row. I think he's proven and he's earned his right to get here to UFC 300. And I think he gets the unanimous decision victory.
I love it. I love that we've got some dissension in the ranks early, because you brought up a lot of great points. I didn't even mention the Jalen Turner fight and the impacts that it could have in this matchup. So great stuff once again by you. It's about damn time. Next up, look at that. Could you believe 3 fights in a row? We have a Sean Dynasty fighter. We've got Jessica Androgenes, minus 130, going up against Marina Rodriguez, plus 120. So very close odds on this women's flyweight, or is this strawweight? What weight is this?
This is strawweight.
Wow, would you look at that? Why did I think Marina was fighting at 25? Very
I don't know
strange.
because it's
But
Jessica Andrade too. Like,
yeah, can you change the title for me, brother? You're killing me, dogs. You had one job,
oh
bro.
my
Thank you.
god.
Fuck. Look at that. Look at that. I'll let you lead. I'll let you lead the
Yeah,
dance here,
yeah,
brother, because of
okay.
course your dynasty implications only continue to rise here. 3 fights in a row. How you feeling about this women's strawweight matchup?
Honestly, this is one of those where I fear. This is what you fear when you pick in Dynasty, because just like I did in the last fight where I have Bobby Green, I picked Jim Miller, and this is one of those where, as much as I love Andrade, having crazy strength and her striking still one of a kind, her grappling has gotten better through time. You know, she's always been a very aggressive and just formidable threat. But the problem for me is I know she just ragdolled Mackenzie Dern, and Mackenzie Dern didn't really belong to be there. But I believe more on the upside of Marina and her Muay Thai here. That I think that's more than that she's going to have enough to get this done. I think she's an excellent striker, but doesn't have the greatest technique. But I do think that the longer this fight, I think by I don't want to stretch this out too much, but I think by the third round we're gonna see a different fighter from Andrade that Marina will exploit. And I find this, I know I'm being very vague here, but I think this is one where I think Marina actually wins by submission. And I think this is I think this kind of not. I know Marina's already on the map, but I think this is one where you kind of add this to the resume of beating someone like Andrade, and that's why I just have this feeling with her that she'll be able to manage the distance and keep the fight on the outside and maybe even form some sort of takedown. And I see Marina taking it.
Wow, I didn't expect that. Would you care to give us a prediction on the type of submission?
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'll say rear naked choke.
Yeah, I saw that one coming a mile away. I
So why ask?
Yeah, no, no, that's the only real path I see, right?
Yeah.
Given both of them, but at the same time, do I really see that path for Marina? I'm not sure, right? That would be her first submission, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff there. I like it. I like the angles you're
I
going
like
with.
to be different. All right.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell. Trust me, I can fucking tell. Um, I like this matchup for a lot of the same reasons. I feel like there is a lot of parity here. I think this is going to be back and forth, especially early, and very reminiscent of one zombie girl, Priscilla Cachueta. It's going to be up to Jessica Andrade to just fucking stick her fucking what's the proper words here? Stick her fucking clit out there and fucking go to war, baby. Like it's gonna be on Andrade to make this fight frantic and violent in order for her to have a chance, especially as things go later. I think Marina could make this a little boring, but it's just so against her nature, in my opinion. She has such violent crosses, especially on the back foot. I think that she's going to be looking to land that straight right early and often in this matchup. And I was honestly surprised when I saw the odds. Obviously, not wide odds here, but um, just kind of crazy that in the year of our Lord, we still are seeing Jessica Andrade as a favorite in these divisions when fighting larger uh, striking based fighters. It's very strange to see those dynamics. I think once again a little bit of MMA math here, but I think given how Yan Xiaonan was able to deal with Jessica Andrade and the way their fight went, I think there's no way that Marina should be the underdog here. So I'm definitely going to be throwing some coin that way just because I'm picking Marina Rodriguez. I think Jessica Andrade is live though. I think, like you said, well, like I said, it's going to be up to really forcing the action here and making Marina just feel entirely uncomfortable. And we really haven't seen that from Marina in a while. So it's a tall order, in my opinion. But this is going to be a fucking scrap. This is another one where the veteran savvy of both these ladies is going to make this a compelling back and forth fight. But give me Marina Rodriguez. Next up, we've got our first head to head, baby. We've got my dynasty fighter, Jailin Turner, minus 226 favorite, going up against, of course, Sean's Renato Moicano at plus 210. Nice little head to head here. So I'll lead the dance on this lightweight matchup once again, the division of our Lord. Um, I think Jalen Turner's about to fuck this dude up. All right, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I think we saw what Jalen Turner just did to Bobby Green. We just saw also what Drew Dober just did to Moicano. And obviously, we can't talk too much shit because Moicano ended up winning in very exciting fashion, right? We can't talk too much shit. But at the same time, there was a lot of success there with the same kind of game from a man that is much smaller. So it really does make you think, like, man, if Drew Dober was able to land straight shots down the middle and really change the trajectory of this fight, imagine what Jalen Turner is going to be able to blast through his guard with. I just feel like there's just such a strength and size disparity here that, don't get me wrong, I think if Renato Moicano can mix in the grappling and begin the fight early and often in those phases, he may be onto something. But let's get this very clear, right? I thought Jalen Turner out scrambled one Mateus Gamrot, one of your other dynasty fighters as well. And I think that style of grappling, that frantic, I need to get out of here mentality is really going to serve Jalen Turner well in this matchup specifically. I feel like the stickier it gets, obviously, the more it favors Moicano. But I just think Jalen Turner is so good at neutralizing those spots and really uh, throwing water on those fires before they start to get out of hand. So I'm going with Jalen Turner here big. I feel like this is his fight to lose. And honestly, he should be able to pick up a knockout here. How you feeling, Sean?
Honestly, this is weird for me because I was surprised that they made this fight. This is the last fight that they made for UFC 300. Kind of was like thrown in at the last second. And I remember even talking to you about this, that I thought they were like, oh, I heard that he was supposed to announce two fights. And then, we didn't know if they were actually going to end up, announcing that 13th fight. But then they just threw this in like randomly at like the end of like a UFC event. And I was very surprised when Moicano was announced into it because Moicano just spent 2 years off, came back to fight Drew Dober, got pieced up. He did like you said, did come up with the win, but he was getting fucked up, and I was actually pretty surprised with like that quick of a turnaround. It's 2 months ago, right? I think 2 months, 3 months ago. And even in the Jalen Turner fights, his reach advantage is going to be so significant here. His dynamic striking, he's even got a pretty solid submission game. Obviously, nothing compared to Moicano's, but I think this is one where he's just so much longer, and he's so good at pressuring fighters. I don't think Moicano's really going to have a lot going his way. I feel like this is constantly going to be one of those back foot things, and reaching for takedowns and and grappling. But even in Jalen Turner's fight, I just talked about his fight against Bobby Green and how good that was. But even in the fight against Dan Hooker, we were together for that fight. I still don't know how Dan Hooker survived and then
Tough
won.
son of a bitch. Tough. Son.
That's just who he was. He took a head kick on the chin, didn't even move. He just took it like, beautiful. Like he just like he nothing. He just took it. And you know what? Jalen Turner gassed and that was it. But I think this is one where that's my only concern with Jalen is how he would be the end of round two, towards round three. But with Moicano still coming back after 2 months after also spending 2 years off, this feels like more of like taking a payday because it's UFC 300 sort of ask. Like UFC asked him to do it. He said, "Oh, absolutely. UFC 300, the pay that you're paying me, I'm taking it." This is pretty wild to have him come back, for two fights in 2 months after just spending 2 years off. So, this seems like a Jalen Turner fight in the making, and I see this going his way. I say this if this isn't a first round knockout, I see this in the early second round.
Whew. Okay, I love it. Damn. This is we're halfway there and I'm already getting sad, man, because we're almost done, man. What the fuck? Next up, we've got the first instance where unfortunately we have two fighters on the same dynasty team going up against one another. And of course, these guys are both on my squad. We've got Sodiq Yusuf at plus 120 going up against Diego Lopes at minus 136. Hey, at least that don't mean I'm getting 3 L's right out the chute, right, Sean? That could happen to you. I'm just saying it
Oh, it's
could.
happening to me.
It
It's definitely
could.
happening to me, for sure.
And no matter what, after this fight, I'm getting a W, right? That's how we got to look at it.
Yes.
Salute, baby.
That's right.
But unfortunately, because obviously the high stakes implications in my dynasty team, I don't get the luxury of previewing this fight first. You do, Sean. So how you feeling about this featherweight tilt?
See, this is fun because you know what? Like, I think the fans are super hyped up about Diego Lopez and what he's done when he came out short notice versus Mofsar, and then winning the way he did in his next two fights, and he's a very exciting fighter, and I don't want to take anything away from Yusuf though, but he was so good against Barboza. He was so crazy in that first round. I really thought he had Barboza done. But that was the one thing, was that Barboza came back from the depths of hell to come all the way back to win that fight. I that's one of the best comebacks I've seen on
One
the
of the best
hellscape.
gut check moments ever
Oh, for
in MMA.
sure.
Just
Yeah. And that's what makes this fight so tough to predict. This is tough because I really literally every time we do this, I don't like to think about it too much. I put my notes in and I read my notes, but I don't put at the bottom who I think's going to win. I like to go with it in the moment. And this is still a tough one to say because honestly, my heart tells me Yusuf will win this fight, but also my like the fanboy in me thinks like, man, Diego Lopez can put him in a sub and this crowd's going crazy. Like, because he's just been such a fan favorite he went from nothing to being like, a top 15 favorite fighter in the UFC in 3 fights. Went from prelims to, now he was on the main card in his last fight. I think it was 295. He was his last fight. We were together for that one too. We were at your spot for that one, but man, this is tough. I think this one's gonna. I think Yusuf's gonna be crazy in the first round, and he's gonna be very aggressive. And a part of me thinks that Diego's not gonna be able to survive it. But if he survives it, I think Yusuf can find. I mean, Lopes can find a way to take this to the ground. I think Yusuf's gonna be gassed after like the 7th or 8th minute, and I think Diego gets some crazy sub, and the crowd does go crazy. So, to follow my fanboy in me, which I'll probably regret later, I will say Diego wins this one via submission. But my brain tells me Yusuf is a better fighter here and will get the win. But I will stick to Diego.
Whoo, I love it. I love the analysis, and I also love that we got some parity. Because honestly, man, this is especially when watching the tape, this fight really does make me once again. I mean, I mentioned it 3 fucking times last week. I might as well mention it 4 this week, baby. This fight is very reminiscent to the Manon Fiaho versus Aaron Blanchfield matchup, in my opinion. I think Yusuf is going to have such a strength advantage in this matchup. That's going to be really evident where every time they sort of lock up, you just see how anti grappling Sodiq Yusuf is going to be fighting. And I think that's really going to take a toll on Diego Lopes the longer the fight goes. I think Sodiq Yusuf doesn't get the respect he deserves, man. The guy is three what is it? A three-sport athlete as far as what he's able to do out there. I think if he wanted to and his cardio held up in a way, he could out grapple guys on a regular basis if he decides to. I honestly believe that. In this matchup, obviously, that's not what he wants to do at all. But I think that's a skill set that he has and that he could definitely take advantage of against other guys. In this matchup, though, I just think it's going to be brute force, right? I think it's going to be I need to teach you a lesson early about where this fight is going to be, and it's going to be shit for you. Like that's how I picture this fight going. I think Diego Lopes is a beast, and obviously his improved striking is what also really made us all fall in love with him, right? Just his ability to constantly change up his approach and be a well-rounded fighter. But this ain't Pat Sabatini, baby. This is somebody that will 100% allow you to think that it's okay to hit them and then just teach you in the most malicious way that, hey, actually, this is what I wanted. And now it's time for you to die from a countered cross. I feel like this fight ultimately ends up being a decision victory for Sodiq Yusuf. But I think this is a real, yeah, I must have forgot moment, right? I think the hype and the excitement around Diego Lopes set him up to be in some tough positions here. I think, honestly, though, if we end up in situations where Diego Lopes is pulling guard, things get interesting, right? Obviously, he could catch him in transition with some kind of submission, but I think ultimately Sodiq Yusuf just has the chops to get it done. So give me Sodiq Yusuf by decision. This is one of the ones that I'm actually more confident on. So once again, when I saw him as that underdog, I'm like, hey, I definitely might have to throw a couple shekels on this fight for sure. But phenomenal fight. Like this definitely is more so than all the other fights we've had so far. I feel like this is phenomenal matchmaking, right? Just two guys at the peaks of their powers. Let's find out who the fuck has it. Like, I think before you could argue it was clear who has the momentum, so to speak. This one, it feels like whoever can catch lightning in the bottle on the day is going to be the winner, and that makes for an awesome fight, man. So couldn't be more pumped up. Next up, I get to lead the dance. We've got Holly Holm. I was so surprised when I was looking through the notes. I'm like, wait, 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 wait. Sean doesn't own Holly Holm? Are you serious? Sean, the resident Holly Holm absolute hallelujah, I love you so much guy of the chat. No, there's no shot. Sean hates Holly Holm, and I know he can't wait to give her an absolute obituary after this fight, versus Kayla Harrison at -425, the biggest favorite we have encountered on this card. Holy shit! I just gotta say, those fucking biceps scare me, bro. Say what you want. Kayla Harrison is fucking huge, and this is the first time she is being asked to make 135 pounds. I am throwing money on Holly Holm. I ain't picking her here, right? I'm gonna be very clear. I'm picking Kayla Harrison to win. All right, I'm gonna be honest about that. But first fight at bantamweight, coming off of a loss against Larissa Pacheco in a fight where I thought she really got exposed for a lack of depth in the striking against someone who is a smaller opponent. Now fighting someone who is longer, rangier, in a weight class that she's never fought in. Like, this is a real let the tits hang moment for Kayla Harrison. So much respect for taking this fight and being a part of this, because Holly Holm has nothing to lose. Look at the kind of underdog she is. She's in the same Ronda Rousey position again against the fucking judoka. Like, this is history doesn't align itself much like it did for this matchup. Not often. This is I love this fight because either we get a brand new prospect that is exciting at bantamweight, or we get Sean's favorite timeline, where we get the absolute resurgence of Holly Holm, and we're reminded how not only is she a former champion, but she is arguably the women's bantamweight GOAT. So that is exciting to look forward to in the case that she wins. I'm picking Kayla Harrison. I think ultimately, when it comes down to the way their skills actually match up, I think she's not going to have as easy as a time taking down Holly Holm at first as people think. But once she does get her down, man, Kayla Harrison with elbows allowed does not sound legal to me. I've watched that Invicta fight over and over again. She's a completely different fighter when elbows are allowed, and I love watching her fight in those rule sets. So guess what? That's what we get here. And I can't wait for our dynasty draft, because if she's on the board, I'm 100% taking her. Like, Kayla Harrison is an absolute beast of a prospect, especially at 35. I think there's nobody that's fucking with her at all. The dude is, excuse me, the woman is absolutely a unit. I said the dude. She is so big for this weight class. Um, I have a hard time imagining her making it without being compromised. So that's where a lot of the unknown comes from. That's where a lot of the uncertainty on my part lies. I just have no idea how she's going to look at this weight class, and I have a feeling she's going to look fucking terrible. Just because, once again, she didn't have an easy time making 145 pounds and looked absolutely huge. So having a hard time imagining how this looks. But I think ultimately, when they do lock up, people are going to be surprised for Holly Holm's strength and physicality for a bit. But once they get down on the ground, and the ground and pound begins to be dealt out, I think Kayla Harrison really separates herself in this matchup. How you feeling, Sean?
Well, before I say what I wanted to say, I wanted to ask you how do you I know you're saying you're picking Kayla to win. How are you predicting Kayla to win? Unanimous decision, sub, what do you got?
I'm gonna say second round TKO ground and pound. I just feel like once she, it's not gonna be easy to get her there, but once she gets her there, I just feel like she's too physically imposing, and we've seen Holly Holm get stuck in positions very often.
Yeah.
And I think her level of strength and physicality is just not gonna allow for that to happen. So I'm going with that.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was gonna say. Is I think that's the one thing that, because to be honest with you, I was having a little bit tougher time picking. Like, I was gonna pick Kayla probably 95% of the time, but my biggest worry with Kayla is obviously that much of a weight cut coming into play. That is a significant weight cut, something she hasn't had to do in a very long time, and I think that this is going to be one of those where that might affect you on fight night. So I did feel that way, but the one thing that gets me to make me feel very comfortable about this is the fact of, like you said, with the elbows coming into play now. But how I home, once she's stuck in a position, she doesn't go anywhere. And I think if you're not going anywhere and you're fighting someone not Kayla Harrison, you sure as hell ain't going nowhere. This is 3 minutes of playtime. If you know Spider-Man right there, that's exactly what's about to happen, and that's exactly what I predict in this fight. And I think Kayla Harrison gets this either first round sub or early second round sub. To be honest with you.
Bro, that accent shocked me, bro. That was amazing, bro. Holy shit. I love that. Yeah, that's your long lost relative right there. Holy
That's right.
shit. Shout out to the Macho Man, right?
Oh,
Holy fuck.
I also wanted to say too, you said that Holly Holm has nothing to lose. I kind of disagree with that because she was really, if she had beaten Bueno Silva, she probably would have ended up fighting for the title. Thank God that didn't happen. And it was a no contest, and they still gave it to Bueno Silva for
Do
a
you
title
still
fight.
feel that way after the
Oh,
way the
absolutely.
fucking Bueno Silva Raquel Pennington fight went? I would
Yeah,
have rather
absolutely.
seen Holly
Nope.
Holm get cage grappled for 4 rounds.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to see Holly Holm in a title fight ever again. I'm good. I've seen everything I needed to see. I've seen it all. There's nothing else I need to know. She's great. Good for her. I'm good.
You telling me
You
you
know.
don't enjoy watching Holly
Nope.
Holm's buns
Not. I already
just
finished the sentence for you. I'm good.
pushing women up against the cage? That's not
I,
something that excites
I'm
you?
not. No, it doesn't excite me. But I'm not taking away from her career. Obviously, she's in, I think, the International Boxing Hall of Fame for a reason. She's an incredible fighter. I've seen everything I need to see. Every time I've believed in Holly in the past, and everyone knows her fight against Ronda. That's great. But every time you go to believe in her, every time you believe this is like the jump she needs to take over the reign, or to put her name out there as one of the greats, she always, like, I don't want to say, obviously she crumbles, but she never like gets the fucking job done. Like, she never goes for it. And it's kind of like you're getting like a shell of Holly Holm in this moment. I feel like that kind of is what's going to happen here. Bright lights, UFC 300. Holly Holm has changed UFC women's fighting history with that one night against Ronda, but she's never gone back to that. She's never been that fighter again. And that's what, she's had incredible fights. I'm not taking that away from her, but I think if Kayla Harrison is able to manage the weight cut, this is going to be a long night. But this also could be if Kayla is having a real tough time cutting weight, and we're looking at the scales and she's making it in the last hour, she's kind of, or she, even if she makes weight, but you can see her face is like basically a skeleton. This might be one where you might want to throw some coin on Holly Holm, because, that plays a humongous difference. And Holly Holm has shocked the world once before, and I wouldn't be surprised if she did it again.
Yes, sir. I love it. Next up, we're at featherweights for another beautiful matchup. We've got Calvin Kattar plus 145. You love to see the division in the odds. Going up against Aljamain Sterling at minus 170, making his featherweight debut as a big favorite, almost a two-time favorite. Obviously, Aljamain Sterling has graced my dynasty team. Excited to have him aboard for his debut at featherweight. Sean, how you feeling about this featherweight tilt?
Honestly, this is a great fight. I'm picking Aljamain here because I feel like physicality wise, this is Aljamain's division. I think this fight, like, he looks like he could be a featherweight. He looked like a featherweight in bantamweight. And I think, now he's kind of with the rest of the pack, but he's still, looking at what I've seen from him at like videos of him at the gym, that he's a bigger man now. Like, he looks like this is like he's let loose on trying to make a specific weight, and he looks like he's still trying to cut a lot of weight for this division. So, I think with that alone, and the fact that, his grappling is incredible, and the way he's able to outpace every fighter he's been out there with, I think that's going to be two significant mismatches for Kattar. Obviously Kattar, we've seen him, at his absolute best, and also seen him, go up against the greatest UFC boxer in history in Max Holloway. But, like, I love Kattar. Kattar's one of my favorite fighters in the entire UFC, but I think this is one where Sterling is just going to be so much more dominant with the wrestling and the transitions, that this fight doesn't seem too close to me after that first round. I think Kattar's going to try to be a little bit more touchy feely on the, and hey, yo, like, pauses on all that, but I'm more on, like, just trying to figure out Aljamain's tendencies in that first round and try to figure out what Aljamain's trying to do. And as long as Aljamain doesn't go in and try to do and be someone he's not, like what he did against Sean O'Malley, trying to constantly stand and, like, outbox Sean. Like, and obviously it didn't work out that way. But I think this is one where Aljamain is so confident in himself in this division that I think this is one where he rolls right through Kattar, and he kind of sets himself up for a nice career here in the featherweight division. I think this is only the beginning for Aljamain, and obviously he's a local of where I'm from, but I think this is a great fight, a perfect fight to put together for Sterling's first fight at this division. And I'm not taking anything away from Kattar. I think Kattar's still a top 5 guy in this division, but I think Aljamain gets it done via sub.
Whew, I love it. And honestly, this is a fight that I've entirely made a 180 on. Like early on when I was looking at this, I'm like, man, Calvin Kattar about to fuck this dude up. Like honestly, I legitimately felt that way. I was like, man, this is gonna be a tough night at the office for Aljamain. I just feel like the volume and the ability to be solid at this weight class, but also to put things in combination against someone like Aljo. I just feel like he doesn't do well in extended exchanges. I feel like if he's not having his way, we've seen that take a toll on him mentally and really force him to engage in a phase where he's already being denied. And I think if we could end up in that scenario, right, where he's able to stuff a few takedowns and now he's peppering with shots on the outside and really forcing him to drive for those takedowns. I think this fight is Calvin Kattar's to lose, right? But I think ultimately I agree with you and I lean towards you here. I think the size is going to be a huge difference, which is so weird to think of as with the bantamweight moving up, right? You would initially say the opposite. You would say, Calvin Kattar, rangier, longer striker, should be able to put in work there. But ultimately, I just feel like in the grappling, once we get there, that strength advantage is going to take a toll. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that clip circulating, but Aljamain was grappling with one Jamal Hill, the main event of this
I did
fight,
see
and
that.
fucking dominating him, like just
Yeah,
absolutely having his way with him. And trust me, I know what that feels like as the resident thick boy jujitsu guy here. I know exactly what it feels like to be getting absolutely anviled by a man that's half your size, and you're like, damn, I'm fucking pathetic. It's a demoralizing feeling. And I think ultimately at this weight class, like you said, he should have the gas on top of it, which given that this is a 3-round fight, once again, just feels like everything is in his favor, man. But honestly, watch out for Calvin Kattar's boxing and combinations. I feel like that is going to be the story of the fight, whether or not he can really put himself in a position to succeed long term is all dependent on what he's able to get going in the grappling phase. I mean, in the striking phase. So I'm excited to see the way that one plays out. But once again, War Aljo, baby. And now we've reached our prelim main event, the final prelim of the night, one that I am particularly excited for because everyone knows that this is my guy, right? This is my number one guy. We've got Jiri Prochazka plus 105 going up against Aleksander Rakic minus 117. Dude, I was shocked when I saw these odds because let's be very clear, man. This guy Rakic is coming off of a loss in which he got his knees destroyed against Jan Blachowicz. Now, don't get me wrong. I could see a world where Yuri fights Jan and gets absolutely fucking torched. I will admit that. But um, to assume he is the favorite after coming back from such a long time off, right? Such a long period of inactivity. I get it. Not a lot of people were excited by Yuri Prochazka's performance against Alex Pereira. I just think that's how dangerous Alex is. Like, let's get this fucking clear. If you haven't watched the Yuri Prochazka fight before that one, that is exactly what happens to Yuri. Yuri's out there doing his fucking weird thing like Tony Ferguson back in the day, and then he gets absolutely knocked out. But that is usually where the fight begins, right? It's not where the fight ends. That's usually where the fight commences, brother. Um, I thought there was a case that he could have kept going in that fight too, but once again, that's not everyone wants to argue with me about. I understand the optics weren't the best, but once again, I think that is when the fight truly begins for Yuri Prochazka, and I think ultimately in this fight he might not even have to get to that point. I think he is going to be the 100% more willing to die of the two. And I know that sounds like such a fucking dumb thing to cap, right? Oh, but this guy is willing to die. In all actuality, whenever these guys exchange, I think there's going to be thoughts in Alexander's head about, oh, I can't do this because then this is going to happen. I got to watch out for this because this happened last time. There's going to be none of that. Like, Yuri Prochazka knows he's there to be sent to hell, and he's going to get sent to hell. But once again, that is when the pacemaker is activated, right? That is when the second life, he's like a Saiyan, bro. Once you fucking destroy a Saiyan, they come back stronger, brother. They come back more revitalized. And obviously, banking on someone getting hurt is not a replicable path to victory. I'm not saying, we need Yuri to get sparked in order for him to win here. I just think ultimately he is willing to go there in a matchup where these guys are most likely both going to end up there just with the way they fight. The only thing I'm really concerned about is Alexander Rakic's kicks. I think especially on the clinch breaks, high kicks specifically, might just knock Jiri Prochazka out cold, right? And with head kicks, it's a different ball game. Like you get hit flush with those, completely different than getting rocked with a shot on the feet with just straight hands. I'm worried about head kicks in this fight, but I think ultimately there's going to be a level once again of finding yourself for Alexander Rakic. Are you comfortable throwing kicks to the shins repeatedly after what happened to you in your last fight? There's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered from Alexander Rakic, and seeing him as a favorite in those scenarios just doesn't sit right with me, man. Give me Yuri Prochazka by absolute destruction, by absolute samurai jack mentality. Either I'm gonna fucking die or I'm taking you with me. And I think the Kraken pulls the prey underneath the water surface. How you feeling about this fight at 205?
Yeah, this is, I think, if this fight was made like a year or two in advance from now, I might have believed these odds. But the thing is that for Rakic is, obviously if you look at his resume, there's only I think like one guy current that he's beaten in the UFC. He's been, obviously the his last loss and taking, the injury and being off all this time, and that when you said before there's a lot of question marks with this fight, that's the issue with me, with Rakic, and there's no way I can pick him in this. Yuri, we're talking about 4 or 5 months ago as a champion, whatever it was, 5, 6 months ago. And, Yuri deserved to be a champion. I looked at him as a champion. And, that fight against Pereira, obviously everyone thinks that it was an early stoppage, and probably was in a way, but I think it was a good stoppage. I think, I don't think Yuri could have lasted another 5 seconds longer the way it was going. And yes, I think the referee jumped on it a little early, but the fact that he even came out and said like it was a good stoppage, that's the one thing that bothers me with Yuri going into this is like you said with the legs, but yes, the head kicks, but also the leg kicks too. Where Pereira, when he was hitting him in the shins and in the legs, man, he was falling every time. Like he had no match for any leg kicks whatsoever, and I
He
think
does that
Rocket
to everyone. Just got to throw out. He
definitely.
does that to everyone.
Yeah, I understand he does that to everyone, but that is pretty significant. And I think that I thought Yuri would have more of a better matchup for someone like Pereira in that title fight. I thought he would have something for it, but he didn't. And that just goes to show how good Pereira is. But I think, Prochazka has been there with the champions. He's been around. This is a pretty quick turnaround that I thought Yuri would take some time after getting knocked out or whatever, if you want TKO, whatever you want to really call it. But this was a nice fight. I was excited when I heard that this fight was announced, but there's still too many questions for me about Rakic coming back. I understand he's got very nice striking. He's very disciplined. He's got very strong takedown defense, and I really don't think that's going to play much of a factor in this fight. I think this one's going to be pretty much standing the whole time. A lot of striking, a lot of leg kicks, and I just see this one where, the fact that Yuri's had a lot of time. He's been a champion. He, just coming off of a championship loss. I think he wants to desperately get back there to fighting someone like, Alex Pereira again, or whoever the champion will be. I think this is one where he desperately, well, there's a lot of ways you could go about this where, If Jamal Hill wins the main event, then that fight is perfectly set up. Obviously, if they don't do the Pereira rematch, like there's a lot of ways you can go with this division. I think Rakic is still a couple fights away. This is a pretty big task on your first fight back after losing to Jan via legs. This is almost like an upgrade after losing. You don't really get that too often. So, you know, uh, I think they tried hard to make that Jan Blachowicz fight for him again. It didn't just kept, not working out. And then the fact that they just threw this fight in for UFC 300, I think is even more of a mismatch for Rakic. And I think Jiri absolutely takes this one. I'm very, very surprised with these odds. I'm not a better, so I'm not, and if I do bet, I'll lose. So I won't bet so that Yuri will win because I think Yuri absolutely wins this fight. If this isn't a knockout, I'd be very surprised, but I can see this one absolutely getting TKO within, second, third round.
I love how the only thing you're confident about ever is your inability to bet. Like that is the only thing.
Because I'm 0 for like 42, bro. Like, I'm honestly, no joke. I'm probably like 0 for like 19. Every time I bet the sure thing, something crazy happens and I lose. And so I just stop betting. So every time I don't bet, the what I actually predict wins. And I go, oh, okay. So whoever it is up there just doesn't want me to have any sort of like monetary gain. So I'll just pick it. I'll just pick it for $0 and hopefully I'm right.
It's a selfless pursuit, brother. That's what it's all about. Yeah, man. Honestly, hear me out here. I feel like hear me out. Close your eyes, right? We just previewed all the prelims, right? Only the prelims. I think if we were to have a rare 8-fight UFC card with just these prelims, this will still be in the running for best card of the year up to this point. And this is
Absolutely.
eight fights only.
Yep.
So the fact
Absolutely.
that we get 5 more after this, dude, I can't wait to break down those fights. We went an hour strong on 8 fights. We got 5 more, and I think we're gonna go an hour plus. Like I think there's so much more meat left on the bone, and so much more exciting stuff to cover in this fight card that I cannot wait. Um, Once again, phenomenal episode. Got so much to look forward to. But I just love that we're both on the Yuri train, man. That made me feel so
That's
good.
right.
I really expected you to be going with Rakic here just to hurt me,
Absolutely
right?
not.
Like just to betray me. But
No, no.
thankfully, we're on the right side of history here. Dude, I can't fucking wait, man. This was awesome doing our little preview show of just the prelims, and we're going to be coming back at you in a couple days with all the other information about every other fight on this card. But guess what? I got an exciting thing to talk about for UFC 300. Right after UFC 300, we're still back on the grind, right? The schedule doesn't end. We got another event next week. But let me make something clear to you guys. I'm making a promise. Um, Not only will you have 2 episodes, but I will be making content on every single fight card. I mean, fight on this card. There will be content that exists on every single fight on this card. So look out for that. Make sure you're following me on TikTok as well as on Twitter at Negron MMA so you don't miss any of those things. Make sure you follow the Sideline Guys MMA on Twitter, on TikTok as well, where we'll be also circulating all of those awesome clips and videos that we go up on the TikTok. And with all that being said, Sean, why don't you let the people remember the name?
On the TikTok. Yes, on the TikTok, you can find us there. On the TikTok, yeah. But also, if you can find me at Sean Negron 26 on the Twitter, and
Twitter machine.
yes, on the Twitter machine, and bsreports.org, which I am so excited to have a colleague of mine, a friend, make his debut. I'm not sure when that'll be, but I am very excited that it is coming soon and hopefully within this week because it'll be perfect for 300.
Facts.
That this will be a lot of content coming your way, fans. A lot of shit we're just gonna throw at you, and you're gonna love it all. I'm telling you, it's a lot of fun. We got a lot of things cooking up, and I can't wait for it.
Yes, sir. You heard the man. Make sure you're following him so you can get my article about the 165-pound division, man. I can't wait. It's gonna be up on Friday, like we spoke about, so that I didn't miss no deadlines. We're getting there, and it's exciting. It's exciting to say the least. So, with all that
Yes,
being
it
said,
is.
Make sure that you're following the brand OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms. We're fucking done. We'll catch you guys for part 2 with the main card, wearing an entirely different outfit. Shit, this guy Sean might be in an entirely different town. This guy's Mr. fucking worldwide. He's ubiquitous
Maybe.
out here on this scene, god damn it. So who knows? We might have a fucking we might have your mom's room in the background next episode, because he's out here on an international world tour, baby. But with all that being said, make sure that you keep it locked on OTS Media so that you can get all your 300 coverage. And until the main card, ladies and gentlemen, just don't forget, no matter where you keep your dimes, don't forget the nickels, baby. We'll see you next week.